Welcome back to part 2 with Kevin Ward. We're cruising down to get shakes down at the shop in Hume Lake.
We're going to get to go eat ice cream in front of this.
Yeah, we're eating ice cream. I think it's still about 34 degrees outside right now.
That's okay. It doesn't bother me, but we get to eat ice cream out here in front of this.
This is beautiful. Even as a growing up in Southern California, this was our summer camp retreat for our church that I grew up in. So it's to come back again, and now my kids come in here, and their opportunity to come here for summer camp. This is great. This is just such a great place. It's some real special memories for me.
Well, we'll continue to make some more, but this time we're going to do it on camera. So we're going to get some ice cream. Figure it out. All right.
Beautiful day.
That is.
Yeah, we got to come up for New Year's camp. It was snowing like crazy, but I always like coming up for this one. It gets to kind of relax. And
Hey, how are you?
Well,
Good.
what can we get for you?
You know, I'm just going to do a single scoop of the cookie dough.
Burrito ice cream?
Yeah, that's
Awesome. And that's all you're after?
What's that?
That's all you're after?
yeah, I'm going to actually get a chocolate shake as well.
A chocolate shake?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, you guys?
That's it.
Could I get a name for the order?
Jesse?
Jesse? Awesome. $10.05, Jesse.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
That's the least of my worries. All right.
Man, what a beautiful day.
I always love this view. It's great.
It never gets old out here, that's for sure.
So being here, we talked about your mentors and some of the people that you've picked up here in the fire service. And, so today you teach leadership a lot when you're out and about, So what's some of the big things? I mean, we've all heard some of the basic leadership things, and we all know in the fire service teaching outside that box is what you're trying to do. So what are you doing in the leadership world right now in the conference circuit?
Well, primarily I've been doing a lot of, actually for Utah Fire Rescue Academy, I teach a lot of the fire officer classes there. And
Okay.
a lot of the portions that I teach in that, of course, revolve around leadership. And then we also do some company officer development courses. I do that with another Chief Paul Sullivan of the Weaver Fire District. I do a company officer development workshop. And that's kind of really a lot of our focus. And then we do one on habits of highly effective incident commanders. But I think the ones I really enjoy doing is I really enjoy doing the company officer development and really teaching the company officer, because in the fire service, that is the most important position.
Right.
That's where, the supervision of that fire service company, that single unit, like we talk about the fire service being a team of teams, and that company officer really, having great company officers really lets the chief sleep good at night.
Right.
If I know that I can rely on great supervision and great leadership, like Jocko Willink always says no bad teams, only bad leaders. And so I think that developing great leadership at the company officer level is really critical to the future of the fire service, because that's really where we lack. And if we get that foundation for them as company officers and become good leaders, and they're going to grow into good leaders as battalion chiefs and other chief officers and chiefs of the department. And so I think that's where really a lot of where my focus has been lately on teaching, is really hitting it at that company officer level. And that's just been, to me, just kind of been a passion to do that. It kind of helped to look back and say I've left some kind of a legacy in the fire service,
Right.
saying, man, that guy really gave back. And because I had some great mentors along the way. My battalion chief that I worked for in the Channel Fire Department, Bill Evans, was a great mentor to me, personally and professionally, especially in his leadership ability and his command presence. And Gary Ells, who's with the Tempe Fire Department, recently retired, was another one of my command mentors that I really looked at as someone that was just a terrific leader in the fire service. Just a great guy, genuinely just concerned about really developing great leadership and great incident commanders.
Right. And how long have you been doing company officer development training in Utah?
Well, I came up to be the fire chief in Layton about 15 years ago and started teaching for the Utah Fire Rescue Academy. Actually, shortly after I got up there, I really focused on doing some command training. We developed a command training center, somewhat modeled after the Phoenix Fire Department's command training center. We actually developed a mobile command training unit too that we can take statewide and teach a standardized curriculum throughout the state of Utah.
Right.
And that's kind of morphed into some different training as far as command trainings for different aspects of the departments, because sometimes we go into very small areas, so we had to kind of retool the program that we would normally do in an area along the Wasatch Front that has a lot of resources, and we do one that was kind of geared towards areas that were short on resources, and basically it was geared towards volunteer departments that were responding pretty much on their own, or mutual aid was quite a ways out. So of course their tactical strategy is a little bit different than we would utilize in the Wasatch Front, but it's been very successful. We've taught hundreds and hundreds of incident commanders and really focused on risk management and operating within the risk management profile and really developing better incident commanders. So after we did that, I started teaching some of the fire officer classes and recognized that a need to really come up with something just that we could put together and develop some skills for our company officers, because in the fire service typically we don't do a really good job of officer development. We guys come in, they're a firefighter, they start testing to be an engineer, and they spend their time as an engineer for a little while, test for captain, all of a sudden we magically make them some kind of an officer and put them in charge of people. We really don't teach them a lot. So that's I think been our focus, at least with what we've taught. So we've actually brought that to Fire Shows West. We taught with you up there.
That's where we met at Fire Shows West in Reno.
Yep. Yeah. And so we've done that, and we went down to the Colorado Fire Academy and did a course down there for them, and then done something for our winter fire school down in St. George that we have every year in Utah. It's a terrific fire school with over 800 attendees, and it's a great training program. So we sort of developed that kind of process. We actually developed another program to kind of help people through the promotional process too as well.
Gotcha.
Because we don't expect guys to kind of try to figure out how to do these things on their own. So we wanted to give them some kind of a skill set so they know these are some of the things that you need to really work on as you go through this promotional process. You're going to have to work on dealing with a problem employee. You're going to have to deal with some kind of a oral interview process, of course. You're going to have to deal with some kind of sometimes a tactical simulation. So we kind of break those down and teach those different portions in our class, and we really talk about discipline too, because a lot of times we, as company officers, we're put in positions where we have to lead and guide, develop people, and sometimes they're not doing, they're not performing exactly the way they need to perform, and so we need to put them on a path of making sure that we develop people, and we take appropriate disciplinary action when necessary. And so we kind of focus on giving them some tools to understand a little bit about that process too.
Yeah, in some departments, their company officer development programs are non-existent. So, in Utah, you guys are really progressive in getting that stuff done, and not only in your own department, but statewide. And, you got to have programs like that. Red Helmet Training, we do a week-long, we call it a coach program, company officer assessment center help program.
That's terrific.
And literally a day of simulations, a day of oral interviews like you're talking about. And then that last day, we literally do a mock company officer test. We bring in graders, evaluators from all over the area, captains and chief officers. We take up the entire facility, which is really crazy, but we use one classroom as a staging area, and they work on an inbox exercise. They go to another room to do a teaching demonstration. They do an employee counseling scenario in one of the offices, and then obviously an oral interview in the conference room, and then a simulation in our tactics classroom. And the cool thing about it is not only are they going through a process, but then they actually get instant feedback from the proctors right there. They're able to say, hey, this is where you could have gotten better, or a better score, or don't say that, and things like that, and it's tough because as much as you want to train them for the position, when you're preparing for a captain's test or lieutenant's test or some type of supervisor's position, the best way to pass the test is to train for the job itself, but we all know that there's certain intricacies and things that you're doing that unfortunately you have to kind of teach them to play the game a little bit, if you will. And that's that's just a sad fact of the way we build our test. You know,
it is, and you know, we try to build some professional development in there along the way. I mean, I'm a pretty voracious reader. You know, I really I take every opportunity I can, because you know, I mean, leaders are readers, and you've really got to take that time to focus on reading leadership, not just to read the book, but okay, how can I apply this? How can I Yeah, you know, how does this apply to my position now, and how can this help me be better? And so I find myself going back and actually rereading some books I read 20-something years ago, or being in my vehicle, my university on wheels, as I call it, with an audible book, you know, listening to a leadership book that I read 25, 30 years ago. That's a timeless classic. That you know, so we really, that's one thing we really push too, is the importance of really the personal development side of it, you know, and being accountable and taking ownership of your personal development. You know, we do provide, and we mentioned at our department, we do a leadership academy, where every month we take a particular topic and we focus on that for our leadership training. A lot of times we bring in some outside speakers. We'll bring somebody to come in and talk about ethics. We'll have somebody come in and just talk about bring in our finance director to talk about understanding the finances in the city and understanding how the budget works. And answering, you know, how does the city kind of get their money? Where does our money go? And you know, I mean, I having an expert, the subject matter expert, come in really gives our guys an opportunity to really get some of that, or bringing a city manager in and talk about, you know, what are your expectations for, you know, the leadership within this city and within the department. And so we've had some really good feedback on the courses we've done. We've really had some great, actually some great comments come back, and so we'll continue on with that. My training battalion chief is the one that's been over that and done a terrific job, kind of tooling that. Of course, this month, as we come towards March, in our department, all of our training in March is focused on Mayday operations. We do that in honor of Kendall Bryant, who was killed on March 31st of 2000 in a house fire. And so we focus all of our training in March on understanding you know, Mayday operations. I actually did a whole review of Don Abbott's Project Mayday and spent a couple hours kind of as I dissected a lot of Chief Abbott's material and said, let's really analyze how we get into trouble and, you know, how we get out of trouble. And so we spent a lot of time on that. The last couple of weeks we've gone out and done some practical drills on some Mayday, and actually, you know, calling the Mayday and then our response to the Mayday, and actually how to, you know, from terms of our self-rescue, and really focus on communication. So that's just kind of been our whole month. It's been our mantra is Mayday March, and so our training's a little bit different this month. But we do that to honor Kendall, and you know, we take every opportunity we can to learn from, you know, past mistakes that we've made.
Well, it's amazing. I was part of the Everyone Goes Home program for a couple of years, and because I had been trapped in a garage on a wildland fire and come close to dying on an incident, I think that's how individuals end up being part of those programs and things like that. But one of the things that I kind of figured out is, you know, the whole mantra of Everyone Goes Home, it doesn't really matter until it really hits home. You know, departments that have had a fatality fire like yours or things like that, it's kind of amazing, like when you go and see the mentality post fire, you know, that hey, every March we're going out and we're doing this Mayday training, and there's no hims and haws about it. I'm assuming at your department, because you have that intimate, you know, relationship with your department because of it.
Yeah, I know we need to do it more than just in March. We realize that too, and that's one.
It's better in some places.
At, Project Fires, that Chief Abbott did a tremendous job and analyzed these thousands of Maydays that really we need to do more than just once a year. So we are looking at how do we periodically do some refresher on this, and you know, we do have that, you know, we recognize this is a dangerous profession. And we are really focused on our risk management profile, and if there's lives to be saved, we're willing. When we took the oath, we said we will do what we can to save any, you know, within a structured plan. We'll lay our lives on the line to save someone that can be saved, and Listening to a lot of the podcasts that I do, the Fit to Fight Fire podcast, I love what those guys say when they start that podcast off, and it's another terrific podcast that they talked about. It's not that you want to do good. You got to basically, it's because you train to be good, and that you've got to be your best on their worst day, and they kind of end up with you rescuing you. And it kind of puts it back upon the fact that we really need to do a better job of making sure our guys are prepared and they're fit. They're ready to do this job right. They're ready to, when the call comes in, that they are prepared and trained, and we've equipped them as best we can. And we'll manage the risk, but we can't. We're not risk averse, but we'll manage risk in any way we can. But there is that chance that this is an inherently dangerous profession, and it's. But we'll do it as safely as we can. But we do know that there's a time to come that we're gonna be in harm's way.
Yeah, I'm currently working on a new project right now with Michael Snodgrass. He's up in Oregon. He's the one that does Fire X Talks. I don't know if you've seen those. Yeah. So, but he actually does a memorial rapid intervention crew program every year from one of the firefighters that died in a fire in Oregon. And he's been doing this all over the country for years now. And they go through all of the Mayday types of training for the firefighter, how to get themselves out and do those types of things. And now Red Helmet Training is coming in to have a class that kind of aligns for the 4 days with theirs, but it's for company officers and chief officers that are actually managing the Mayday. And then on the last day, we come together and we culminate to where his class is actually running the Mayday scenarios, getting in trouble, and then our program would actually be figuring out how to manage that Mayday. And we're building it all around this acronym, RESCUE acronym, that I kind of use in the Slab Savers class. But RIC activation, extra resources, what else do you need, obviously? Secondary frequency, call for a PAR, update objectives, and ensure notifications are made, which there's a ton of them. Right. And we put that slab profile in there too. Like as a RIC officer, RIC group supervisor, whatever you call it in your department, you got to remember it's also, when I asked this of one of my guys the other day when we had a RIC activation of my department, I asked that captain, I said, what is your job as a RIC captain? And he says, well, if they get in trouble, to go in there and get them. I said, yeah, that's obviously your job, but your other job is to also go to that incident commander and go, hey, you're putting me in a really bad spot here. You're putting them in positions that I might not be able to get them out. And that's really your job first and foremost. Is some of us don't have safety officers in every fire. Really, we all talk about everyone has eyes, everyone's a safety officer. I get that concept, but really as a RIC group supervisor, you're that captain that's running the RIC crew. Your job is to go, hold on, boss, this is not a good situation, because it's really going to make it difficult for me to come in and get your people out. Yeah.
Well, when we part of my Mayday training, actually I've taken it as part of the habits of highly effective incident commanders course that we do. We talk about the habits, and one of the things we talk about is responding to a Mayday, and we use because we have our field operation guides and we've got our tech worksheets and all that, but sometimes you get just trying to go through that, and years ago, Bill Lappman, who was my battalion chief, and we developed an acronym called ERUPT. And he said, that's something that's easy for me to remember as an incident commander. Okay, if I erupt, I declare emergency traffic, I deploy my RIC, I upgrade the assignment, I get PARs on everyone, I note the time that the event happened, what tools do I need to get that person rescued? So it's ERUPT with 3 T's basically. And then consider the tactical channel for fire operations, not moving the Mayday firefighter, but potentially we may have to move to a tactical channel for fire operations. So if I can just go through that ERUPT and go, okay, I need to clear emergency traffic, I need to deploy the RIC, upgrade the assignment, get PARs, and go through ERUPT, that gives me at least a foundation and a start. Right. And then, we're really big in our system, which we basically brought up from the Phoenix system, is the whole concept of having a support officer. And that's another big thing that we push statewide when we were talking about leadership. That's in command training. That's one thing we've really said, is we really need to not have an incident commander out there flying the plane by themselves. We need to have a co-pilot with them. We need to have a support officer in there that comes in and verifies and challenges the strategy, takes over, maybe takes a tactical worksheet, lets that captain or the incident commander fly the plane, and
Right.
they can maintain that, because as we study, and we did this with the dozens of NIOSH reports that Chief Sullivan and I reviewed, we looked at and said, well, what's some common denominators, and that's what we pulled out for our habits of highly effective incident commanders. And we started looking at it and said, well, the effective use of support officer, because they talked about
Right.
the incident commander being overwhelmed with radio traffic, overwhelmed with information.
Possibly to the point where they even miss the Mayday. First
Well,
off, you got to
they
catch
could-
the
they
Mayday,
could
let
say,
alone
yeah,
managing it.
Operating we talk about operating from a sterile cockpit environment. We're really
Right.
big on that. We liken that to the aviation industry that says, well, if you're going to be, flying a plane, you're in a sterile cockpit, nobody interrupts you, you're flying the plane. Well, what's more dangerous than manage a structure fire with crews on an interior fire operation?
Right.
So if we operate from a sterile cockpit, we have the ability, more likely, to hear that and not have auditory exclusion, to be able to see what's going on in a visual, remote, stationary command post, and then give them the support officer to help manage that information, manage the information flow, track resources, utilizing a good tactical worksheet, and going through and making sure that, that with that support officer there, that they've got that extra person. I refer to the movie Sully Sullenberger, and
Right.
and we talked that we and I'm sure everybody's seen that, where the whole process with the bird strike and losing both their engines, the rapid sequence of decision making, and how important it was having his co-pilot. In fact, I put a picture of Jeff Skiles up there, and I say, "Who's this?" And everybody's like, no clue. Then I put a picture of Sully Sullenberger. Oh, okay. So
Right.
That was Jeff Skiles. That was his co-pilot. So, and when you hear Sully talk about that in front of the NTSB, and he's talking about that, this couldn't have been, this would not have been a successful event with good crew resource management, with Jeff Skiles as his co-pilot, with the flight crew itself, and all the flight attendants.
Right.
Well, when they hear the brace for impact, then with their mantra of head down, stay down, they knew exactly what to do. And so, we like to think that if we get good at having an incident commander in that sterile cockpit, that's going to alleviate the potential for the incident commander to not miss things like reading smoke, that they can
Right.
actually look at and read the smoke conditions, read the building. They can look at
Right.
it, and they can see how the conditions are changing, volume, velocity, density, color. They can see that. If you're out in the front yard trying to command an incident, and my department used to do that when I got there, and
Right.
this was even after they'd had a line of duty death, and I first got up there, and I said, "What's that guy doing in the front yard?" And the first day on the job, we had a house
Right.
fire, and they said, "Well, he's the incident commander." I said, "Well, get him back in his vehicle."
Right.
In fact, I said, "I'll go get Officer Dixon's handcuffs and we'll handcuff you to the steering wheel, and then I'll come let you out after once
Right.
we get a law stop. Then I'll undo your handcuffs."
You still got to have those working bosses that are out there seeing all those little details, but you got to confine yourself.
You got to have that. Yeah, exactly. But the incident commander, and I liken that too to listen to our video where we actually had our line of duty death, where the incident commander was in the front yard, and you've got fans going, you've got pumps going, you've got engines revved up, and you've got people talking, distractions, and the incident commander has no idea that he's losing a firefighter and upstairs.
Right.
And so that's why we're real focused on the whole concept of that sterile cockpit, and having someone that's in there with a support officer. And in the event of a mayday, you could split the roles,
Right.
where the support officer could take them to mayday, and the incident commander could continue the firefight too. So
Yeah.
so we that's one successful thing we have pushed statewide throughout our command training, and at least getting incident commanders to come on scene and declare a strategy, so that everybody's on the same page, so that everybody's on the right playbook. You're either offensive or you're defensive. You got to have that.
Right.
You got to be in the right playbook, and so somebody's got to set that stage. So we really focus that on our statewide command training is declare your strategy. And so that's again one of those things.
Well,
we
that's
focus
the
on.
supporting officer. A lot of departments, it's hard to help out a department that's completely resource short.
Sure.
But even if you say, well, my fire department doesn't have a lot of chief officers to implement that type of thing, there's plenty of fire departments out there that have gone to, hey, we have a working fire, we're going to actually attach another engine, and I'm not talking about a RIC engine, I'm talking about an additional engine on top of that, and they become a command post engine. The firefighter becomes accountability, the engineer becomes staging, and you can get those command positions filled in that command post with engine companies if you don't have enough chief officers.
You're right.
But we got to figure out a way to manage these incidents a lot better. You know, the military doesn't go to war with just one person running all of the troops.
No.
You know, and we teach span of control all the time, but it's that effective. How many people can you effectively manage based on their experience level, based on the severity of what's going on? We constantly revert back to that. Well, it's 5 to 1. We're still good with that. We're still 5 to 1. Think about what's going on here, you know?
Well, and the way that in our county, we've really gotten good because we have several departments that are single station departments. You know, it's they don't have battalion chiefs. They might have a fire chief or a deputy chief with them. And, you know, from a response standpoint, it's one of the things that I kind of really pushed for coming up from the system that I grew up in the Phoenix area system with the Chandler Fire Department, was the importance of good, robust automatic aid and regional operational consistency. And so that's one thing we've done. I think we've done a really good job in our county, is we cross borders every day on fires, even though we do have some fragmentation of the dispatch centers. Operationally, we all work together, and we do every working fire. I think in just about in everybody's city, they're going to have somebody from another agency coming in.
Right.
And you've got to have that. And so we've crossed that over with the chiefs coming in too. I mean, come on in. You know, that way we do have someone that can be. We have a trained safety officer.
Right.
You know, you can come in and be the support officer. I can come in for my department, and I can just be like the senior advisor position because we have other chief officers coming in. We're fine with working together.
Well, it's amazing. Like on both sides of the fence, there will be firefighters that are watching this video, and they're literally going to listen to you say, "Yeah, we work together all the time. It's like not a big deal." And you're going to have firefighters that are saying, "That's crazy," right? On both sides of the fence, like. There could be a fire right across the street, and because it's Engine 2's jurisdiction in that fire department, we won't even go. You're going to have those firefighters that say, it's crazy that you guys work that well together. And then you're going to have firefighters that are so used to it. That's crazy. You're telling me that there's fire departments in this nation that literally won't go across the street if there's a fire? Yes. Yeah. I teach all over the country, and I've been to fire departments that literally say, at this line, we stop. We literally won't respond to a fire engine across that line unless they're asked for or told to.
Well, you're right, and you mentioned around the country. You go back. I really encourage anybody listening here, go to the National Fire Academy. You want an eye opener and you want some good networking time, go take a National Fire Academy class and understand how kind of the rest of the world operates. But yeah, you're exactly right. It's some places that's still so territorial, and that was the one thing that I was really pushing for. It's not your fire, it's the customer's fire. It's the legendary Mrs. Smith's kitchen fire.
Right.
It's not, we had a great fire. No, you didn't have a great fire. Miss Smith had a fire in her house. She had a tragic fire. She had a terrible fire in her house. We tried to go make it better for her. So that's kind of got to be our focus. And we got to be.
Unless you're going to go back to putting the fire marks on the side of the building, and the insurance company out. Look, go put out the fire. It doesn't matter whose jurisdiction it is, but you got to work together.
Absolutely. So, but it's been interesting. Like I said, now my 15th year as fire chief. It's kind of a long tenure for a lot of chiefs, and still have some big plans there. But I think me coming in, the one thing that I think that I tried to do more than anything was try to give that place some kind of vision. I don't think it had good vision. In fact, I was just reading a book by Mary Keller. We actually had her come in this last winter fire school, and she had a book on why leaders fail, and one thing she talked about was something I was really big on, was what's the vision for your department. And one of the stories they liken it to is that the jigsaw puzzle, you can dump 1,000 pieces of a jigsaw puzzle on a table, and if you don't have the picture on the box of what it's supposed to look like, there's no way you're going to put this puzzle together. So the same thing with the department. You can't just put this department together the way it needs to be until you have a vision of where that has to be. And so that's the one thing I think was pulling my officers together and saying, okay, let's look at this department 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 years old. Where do we need to be? We know we're going to have growth, and we know we're going to have to bring in some more staffing. We're going to what's our ALS going to look like? We have a very robust facility as well at our departments, and so we have a great robust EMS program. It's over 83% of what we do, just like most places, But having that vision of what's the service level that we think we can provide for the city. We kind of rewrote our mission statement, and after we kind of figured out what the vision of what the department looked like, then we kind of pieced it together with the mission statement.
Right.
So I think that's the one thing I can say about as a chief, getting back to those company officers, really spending as chiefs, you got to get out in stations. You got to spend time with those guys. You got to get around. We pride ourselves on the fact that I see so many places that have 3 different departments, A, B, and C shift departments, or worse yet, you might have 12 stations and you've got 36 different departments out there running.
Right.
That's the one thing I think that I always tell my BCs, man, I've got my A team together, and the one thing we've been on is we're on the same page, and we speak united. I'll take all 3 BCs together when we go out and meet with the stations. We'll bring them in, kind of either quarterly or whatever. We'll talk with the guys and kind of let them know the direction we're going, because we have a lot of things happening. We've had a big transition from having a lot of part-timers to augment our career to now going fully career, and basically eliminating our part-time program just because the staffing issues are so tough these days with part-time positions. So, we really had some great company officers that have kind of bought into that vision and really taken ownership, and again, back to leadership development and really building that relationship with them and giving them the tools that we can to help them develop as leaders.
Right.
We send them to training.
Crazy.
Send them to red helmet training.
Well, we're in California, but yeah, anywhere. And that's strategic planning. Any fire service, the fire service is drastically changing. And if you think you could continue to do things the way that we've been doing them for hundreds of years, you're going to be in big trouble here soon. And Scott Ferguson, he's the fire chief of Murrieta here in California.
I know Scott well.
So 2 years ago, he did a class at Firehouse World that was basically, the title was like strategic planning faster than it takes to bake a cake. And he literally had like a box of Duncan Hines cake on the desk in front of him on the table, and he goes, look, this is all it is. Your strategic plan, there's ingredients, right? There's how long do you got to bake it for, and then right here on the front, this is marketing your fire department. And he kind of just talks about how the pieces of strategic planning actually fit together, and put it in the oven, bake it for 15 minutes, but you have to have all the pieces of it, and
Absolutely.
Going back to like you were talking about, you have that leadership academy where you're bringing in the city manager or the finance director, having those external stakeholders in those things with your company officers and your chief officers, so they understand not only, hey, I understand how to count the beans, how are my firefighters spending it. Those are huge successes that you got to continue to keep pushing forward.
We are certainly a very expensive service. There's no doubt about it. When you go in and talk to the city manager, and you're spending over $500,000 for an engine, and the staffing, because they have a hard time understanding the staffing idea. When Susie calls in sick in finance, there's nobody there to answer that phone, but there's somebody else that works in that department versus, when someone's gone, if Susie's on the fire department and she's a firefighter, then Susie's gone with us and our minimum staffing. We have to fill that role. It's either rovers or overtime or somebody coming back in. And so it's, we have to do a good job ourselves as fire chiefs of educating, our elected officials too. I have that unique perspective a little bit because I am an elected official for a fire district, for the Weaver Fire District, as well as chairman of the board.
Oh, okay.
So I have a little opportunity. I have, my neighbors are, come to me. I mean, they're taxpayers like me, and they want to know why did my taxes go up, $5 this a month or $4 a month for fire protection. Well, this is why, and I have to kind of explain to them that our apparatus was really antiquated, that we were falling behind in wages, we were losing people because of our wages. We had to catch up because there hadn't been a property tax increase in so many years. So sometimes it just takes some good, just some good education on everybody's part. But.
Right. How's your ice cream going?
That's good. It melted. Too busy talking here.
Well, it's been fun hanging out here with you at Hume, and
this is great.
Getting together.
We got some of the weekend left, and some other activities today. Going to go down the tube run today. Yeah,
my wife's going to go on the rope course, and obviously more fellowship, more leadership, and we dedicate this episode to John White.
Yes, we do,
and
John.
Obviously, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be able to hang out here and do certain things. So
we miss him. We'll honor him, and we certainly look at the legacy he created, as we mentioned earlier, with Firefighters for Christ, and just what the countless marriages he's saved over the years, the people that he's developed relationships with, because he was always
Right.
just not about religion, it's about relationships, and that's what he was talking about all along. So, yeah,
That's awesome.
we miss him this year. This is kind of different, not having him here this year.
yeah.
But, we see a lot of the same faces again here, and it's great to spend some time.
And I get to see you.
Good to see you again. Yeah, we'll be teaching again here pretty soon.
Yes,
again.
we will.
Together
So, yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks, Kevin.
again. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right,
Appreciate
cool.
the opportunity. Thank you.